The first notable winter storm of the season is about to cross the US. This video will break down the timeline and setup for that storm, including how cold your temperatures could get behind it next week. Thank you for joining me in this video. I don't want to waste any time, so let's go ahead and jump into the overview of how the active jet stream expected in the next several days will result in some major changes that occur across the United States. Starting out with the jet stream playthrough, just as we go through our Wednesday, November 5th and into the Thursday, November 6th timeframe, one thing you'll notice forming over the central US is a slight U-shaped dip coming down. This dip or trough will be associated with the first of multiple surface low pressure systems set to move east in the next several days. As that trough and the associated surface low pressure moves towards the east coast out of Thursday into Friday, it will bring with it a front that could include the impacts of rainfall, some gusty winds, and possibly as you move north and into some higher elevations, some snowfall. This system and a slight dip in the jet stream, though, will be setting the stage for a much bigger dip in the jet stream that will move in as we go into the weekend. Can you see it? I certainly can. Moving out of Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming, and then stretching out into the plains by Saturday will be this next and much stronger trough already. As it continues to move east, it will pick up even more energy, and the surface low pressure associated with this could very well form up a slight winter storm. Given that it's November, even with some cooler air in place, there will be a lot of rain in many zones. However, as you go further north, there could be a swath of some decent snowfall totals. Behind that is where this big dip in the jet stream will continue to flow over parts of the central and eastern U.S., resulting in likely much cooler air. I'll break down how that cooler air could really bring your temperatures down into the early to mid part of next week. I'll discuss that especially at the end of the video. First, though, of course, we got to take a look at the timing for the winter storm and the possible impacts from it. Let's do just that by looking at the future radar overview for the active weather setup in the coming days. First of all, just playing things out as we go in towards the Wednesday, November 5th timeframe, one area you'll notice already seeing some active weather, that's going to be the northeast U.S., where a brief clipper-like system will be bringing some rain and high elevation snow. Overall, this will have no impact on what will be moving in by the time we go into the end of the week and the weekend, which will, at this point in time, still be back in parts of the west with rainfall and all that jet stream energy pushing into the zones there. As we go out of Wednesday into Thursday, that's when multiple areas of some weak surface low pressure will begin moving out with that first dip in the jet stream into the central U.S. As that continues to evolve as we go out of Thursday night and into Friday, that's when the chance for some rainfall will form along that general front, especially extending from parts of the interior northeast, back through the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and then down towards the lower Mississippi Valley. That's where I think there could be the chance for some rainfall, possibly some gusty winds, and maybe even a couple of stronger thunderstorms late on a Friday afternoon and into the evening. That general front will continue pushing towards the east coast while really falling apart past the Appalachians as we go into Saturday morning. There could be some showers around on Saturday from parts of the northeast all the way down towards the southeast coast. Nothing too significant will be occurring by that point in time. Hold your horses, though. That initial front breaking up near the east coast does not change the fact that we're going to still have that next piece of jet stream energy to come through. Can you see where it will be on our Saturday morning? I certainly can. In parts of Montana, Wyoming, and the Dakotas region, there will already be some snowfall in association with that new piece of energy and its surface low pressure. As that new low pressure and a piece of jet stream energy continues to move east out of Saturday into early Sunday, that's when it looks like there will be a swath of snow moving out of parts of the Dakotas and Nebraska, through parts of Iowa and southern Minnesota, as well as over into Illinois and Wisconsin. It will be falling on a warm ground and having trouble accumulating. However, it looks like there will be several hours of snow in these zones that I just hashed out. Around that same time, late Saturday into early Sunday, that low-pressure system around the mid-Mississippi Valley will also be pulling up enough moisture to bring in at least some light to moderate rain showers for parts of the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley regions. As the new jet stream energy and its associated low pressure continue pushing towards the east into our Sunday midday time frame, that's when cool air in place in parts of the northeast U.S. could result in some snowfall being the first precipitation that falls in parts of New York and western Pennsylvania. Towards the coast, it will start as rain before any type of snow could be possible, but it will be a cool rain in parts of the mid-Atlantic. Scattered showers will also be possible on a Sunday all the way back down towards the southeast U.S. with this pretty broad-scale low-pressure system and front forming up. Out of Sunday and Sunday night into Monday is when questions begin to arise. There's a high likelihood that snow will continue through especially parts of the interior northeast into early Monday. There is also the chance for some additional energy to ride along the leading edge of that jet stream trough. If that occurs towards the conclusion of this wintry storm, there could very well be some snowfall that gets closer towards the mid-Atlantic coast, pushing through the DC region, through Baltimore, and then towards Delaware. There could be snow in New Jersey, Long Island, out to Cape Cod, if enough cool air gets towards the coast fast enough with some moisture into Monday. There's a big question with that, but it's certainly a possibility for some of the first flakes of the season to hit those zones. Regardless, there will definitely be interior northeast and lake effect snow that continues, along with some gusty winds through the day Monday. There will be rain, there will be gusty winds, but I think the most interesting impact that will come out of the late week setup, that's going to be the potential for some snowfall. We're looking at some blended guidance showing 24-hour increments of possibly accumulating snowfall, starting out with the beginnings of that new dip in the jet stream and the snowfall it could produce in parts of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and out into Minnesota out of Friday into Saturday. You can see that those zones have grays in the shading, and that indicates around 1 to 3 inches of accumulation possible. Keep in mind, we are in early November. The ground is still warm in some of these zones, and accumulation might not happen except on bridges where there could also be some ice forming up. There might be some accumulation on some grassy surfaces, but the totals probably won't even be quite as high as this guidance is showing. With that being said, let's keep the playthrough going. Out of the Dakotas and Nebraska, coming through parts of Minnesota and Iowa, into the lower Great Lakes region, it does look like there will be some snowfall. At least 1 inch to 3 inches worth of snow should come down out of Saturday into early Sunday. It might not all accumulate, though. Beyond that point, that's when snowfall will push up into the interior northeast. Given how cool things will have been up to this point in those zones, there could very well be some accumulation of at least a couple inches in the interior zones of Pennsylvania, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine by Monday morning. Notice this too, there is at least a slight signal for possible flurries. Not that they likely accumulate, but flurries could definitely come all the way down as far south as Virginia as we go through Monday morning and into the afternoon hours with that big dip in the jet stream moving in. That's certainly interesting and not something that you necessarily see often this time of the year. What's the reason that snow flurries will be possible with any lingering moisture into Monday fairly far south? It's going to be that temperatures are going to be well below average for this time of the year. Let's take a look at how temperature zones will evolve, starting with this weekend. Look at what's going to be going on around our November 8th on our Saturday. Other than some cooler air starting to seep in already into parts of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, along with where that snowfall will be coming into parts of the Midwest. Further south from there, expect warmer than average temperatures. Many zones down in the southern corridor of the U.S. will be in the 70s and 80s, as numbers should be around 5 to 10 degrees above average for this time of the year. Drastic changes will fill the east by the time we go into the early part of next week, though. That huge dip in the jet stream that will be still lingering around through at least Monday and then this day, which is Tuesday the 11th, that means temperatures of below average to well below average criteria from the plains eastbound. Those blues and purples indicate numbers that will be 10 to 25 degrees below the seasonable norms. Temperatures will basically be feeling like what they should be in the winter or even a bit cooler in some zones. That means that you'll definitely want to protect people, pipes, and pets, the 3 Ps. The National Weather Service says to do it. I'm going to tell you to do it. Very important things to remember when it comes to the cold and how it can affect your lives. Let's take a look at just how cold it could get in your area in terms of exact high and low temperatures as we go towards this weekend and the early part of next week. First of all, it's worth noting it's going to be pretty mild as we even finish this week. Around Friday, November 7th, all the way up to the Midwest, the lower Great Lakes, parts of the Mid-Atlantic, highs will be in the 60s. This is why snow will probably have a hard time accumulating when it falls as early as Saturday afternoon in some of these zones. Nevertheless, look at what's going to be going on into Saturday morning. We'll cool from the 60s on Friday afternoon down to the low to mid-30s in some of the zones that will get the snow, and then they won't warm up too much from there. Saturday will only hit around 50 in some zones of Nebraska, Iowa, and Illinois, and then it will come quickly crashing down as that precipitation falls throughout the day. That's how at least some light snowfall accumulation may occur. The real cool down really begins coming in out of Saturday into early Sunday, though. Look at this. From parts of the Mountain West in Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado, out into the North Central Plains, over to the Great Lakes region, widespread teens and 20s will be the readings on the thermometer for November 9th in the early morning. It will only warm up to around freezing in a lot of those zones for Sunday afternoon. Even as far down towards the southeast as the Ohio and Tennessee Valley regions, highs will only be around 50 to 55 degrees. That's a bit below average for this time of the year already. And then look at this. Here we go, Sunday night into Monday morning, with that trough by that point dipping all the way down towards the coastline. It's going to be freezing at least down to the southern Appalachians for lows. Further north from there, 20s, even some teens back up into the north central U.S. Again, this is the first real deal cool down of the fall and early winter time frame. Here we go out of Monday morning into Monday afternoon. These numbers are well below where they should be for this time of the year. It is going to be around 50 to 55 down towards the southeastern and Gulf Coast states. It is going to be in the 30s and 40s as you go north of there through parts of the Midwest and upper Midwest, through the Great Lakes, the interior Northeast, you name it. These numbers are below average over the entirety of the eastern corridor. What about Tuesday morning? Look at this. Down in the 20s and 30s all the way down to Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas. The impacts of this cooldown will definitely be wide-reaching, so be ready for them. I'll continue to provide more updates on the active weather and cooler weather setup ahead as we go into the future. For now, though, let's recap the headlines that I just discussed in this particular update. Headline number 1, the first true wintry setup of fall will dive in, with that second dip in the jet stream that will move in this weekend and into early next week. After that initial jet stream dip, that second one should bring in the gusty winds and a notable swath of the first snows of the season up north. It might not accumulate much, but many people, in fact I think millions of people, will be seeing their first flakes out of this. Behind that, things will become even more widespread with a freeze covering the eastern half of the United States to start next week. It definitely is going to be an active time ahead, and I think things will only be more and more active as we go into the winter. That's what I discussed in my recent winter forecast update, in fact. If you're interested in checking that out, make sure you click the link in the description for that. Also down in the description will be a link to the weather model maps provider I use, WeatherBelt. Using their free trial and their subscription will give you access to the same maps I use in my videos at your fingertips. That's all I've got in terms of reminders, though. Thank you so much for tuning into this update. God bless you. All I hope to see you in the next one.
One Nation Weather.